Good Lord. Now Prince Harry and Meghan Markle are plotting to take Buckingham Palace. Surely we're not going to allow that to happen. Of course, the major news overnight that King Charles and Queen Camilla have confirmed that they will never live at the palace. Neither will Prince William and Catherine. So that is a historic moment, a historic end of what has been not only the centrepiece for British monarchy, but the home of our monarch since Queen Victoria. However, this comes at a time where Harry and Meghan are welcoming a return to a royal palace, even though previously they claimed it would just be far too dangerous. And that's why there are now suspicions that Harry and Meghan are going to try and make Buckingham Palace their base in London, which would mean, even though they are no longer royals, they would be senior figures connected to the most important location in the history of the British monarchy. Can it really happen? I hope and pray not. But certainly this is a concern, with Tom Sykes of The Royalist reporting King Charles dumps Buckingham Palace and reveals he's paid $40 million in tax. Charles and Camilla have formally declared they will never move into Buckingham Palace, with Harry and Meghan rumoured to be staying there next month. The conspiracy theories write themselves. And he reported if the palace is still formally categorised as a home, then giving Harry and Meghan an apartment there becomes an interesting addendum to some careful wordsmithing. If it does come to pass that Harry and Meghan get semi-permanent access to an apartment at BP, the irony would be extraordinary. The two members of the royal family most publicly associated with wanting to escape the institution would become the only royals actually living at Buckingham Palace. The building that no Windsor wants to call home would become the London residence of the two people many Windsors would prefer not to see at all. You couldn't make it up. Brittany, editor of the Royal News Network. This cannot happen. Please, God. It almost... Brittany, can I just say here, sorry, I'm so mad about it. I don't even care about the practicalities. I know there is a suite of apartments at Buckingham Palace and it would maybe be the most convenient place. But just... No.
I mean, it's just such an awful idea, Dan.
Yes.
And we know that I think Zara and Mike now, have some sort of apartments in Buckingham Palace. I think Mike mentioned that recently. And it does make sense. Obviously, there are apartments there. The Edinburghs live there, as far as I'm aware, when they're in London. And so obviously it is a residence for some royals. But I think stepping away from Buckingham Palace and somehow putting Harry and Meghan in just seems like a really, really dumb idea, because it fuels their delusions of grandeur. It, again, confuses the public as to where Harry and Meghan stand. I just don't quite understand where Charles is on this. Obviously, we can all understand from a human perspective, he wants to reconcile with his son. He wants to see his grandchildren. That is very human, but at the same time, he has to think of the institution, and he just doesn't seem to be doing that. And it's just an absolute disaster and mess. And I think shows that I don't know if Charles is necessarily the leader of the moment here. I just don't think he's making good decisions when it comes to what the future of the monarchy should look like.
No, because this is not a good decision. On so many levels, it is not a good decision. And of course, Brittany, we are going to come to the latest ins and outs about exactly what is going on here, because I do think what we are also seeing is a big PR push by Harry and Meghan that is not being completely honest, Brittany, with how the king really feels about what's going on, you see, and that does matter. But at the same time, Brittany, Harry is just a complete disaster zone. It's utterly mortifying. So he has now released a new video on YouTube where he uses the phrase single source of truth. That's really chilling anyway, Brittany, by the way, because it's something that Jacinda Ardern said during COVID, and it very much links to this whole thing about he wants to shut down people like you, he wants to shut down people like me, single source of truth. Guess how many views it had when I looked last night, Brittany? Guess how many? 269, not 269,000, 269 views. So basically what we're about to do, and maybe this is stupid of me, but we're about to give Harry something like 10,000 more views, like 10,000 times more views than what he currently has. But let's have a look at this very chilling video anyway.
Today, travel stands at a crossroads. It can be a catalyst for positive change, but also a source of environmental strain. Driving emissions, overwhelming destinations, depleting the natural world it depends on. Travelist is working to build something different. From tangled, fragmented data to a single source of truth. From hidden impacts to trusted, transparent choices. From siloed efforts to a powerful collective. From small tweaks to accelerating systems change. From travel stuck in the past to travel that unlocks action from travelers, businesses, and communities. From where we are to where we need to be. Travel has the power to drive change. And together, we have the power to change travel for good.
And of course, this is so shady, the whole video, because as according to Taz pointed out, Prince William's Earth shot is in the news, and the eco-warrior, meaning Harry, is spouting off again. Rather laughable when they use private jets to go to polo matches, music concerts, charity events like Ubers. Also having 3-car motorcades when going to dinner or the theatre. Shush, Harry. And Brittany, you pointed out, even my lowest performing videos don't get numbers this pathetic. Also, why is Harry doing all these strange messages outside? It's just bizarre. He should have also made this a short, given that it's only a minute, as maybe it would have done better. And Brittany, I just want to be fair. I've just checked. At the time of recording, Brittany, he's up to 802 views. Okay, so 802 views, but he wants to reside at Buckingham Palace. The latest bombshells from Harry and Meghan that the Montecito Mafia and the rest of the media are desperate to hide. Subscribe right now for the real story with zero spin and zero censorship.
Well, and he wants to be the single source of information. And that's, of course, a scary thing. And Travelist, I don't really understand Travelist. I've never understood it. And it's at least one premise I found totally bizarre is that you can pick or choose your seat on a plane based on the carbon emissions that particular seat like gives out or whatever. And I'm like, well, that doesn't make any sense because no matter where you sit on the plane is emitting emissions. Like sit in first class, sit in the back of the plane. Either way, emissions are being expelled. So why are you choosing a ticket based on that? It's sort of a silly premise. I think the whole company is sort of weird and bizarre and obviously not really making any sort of impact, which is why obviously he can't even break 1,000 views on a video. But Harry just trying again to steal limelight, steal focus, trying to do all these things and always seeming to be a step behind him and Meghan both, always a step behind William and Catherine. And even if, let's just give them the benefit of the doubt, they were always planning to do something, they always look like they're trying to steal the limelight from Catherine and William, and it's a horrible look for them. They need to give that up and try to do something different. They just seem to be chasing constantly the monarchy they gave up.
Yeah, and I mean, you see those pictures of William, Brittany, with like real A-listers, and the contrast is very clear. What is interesting though, Brittany, there is now some real pushback around Harry and Meghan's narrative in regards to the trip next month, because we had Lady Colin Campbell here yesterday saying Charles is not picking up Harry's calls either. We also had reporting from Katie Nicholl in Vanity Fair that William is also rejecting Harry's calls, and we have Robert Jobson saying, look, there might be a meeting, but this is like a perfunctory meeting that he feels he has to do. This isn't some big reunion. And now we have Rebecca English, who is the royal editor of the Daily Mail, but I always set up when I'm talking to her, she pretty much takes information directly from Buckingham Palace. And she has also admitted that the king will see Harry in July, but provided a little bit of the context about why this is happening. So she writes, the king is a caring Christian man, and while he is wary about his son's behaviour, I don't think he will pass up the opportunity to see his grandchildren. As one well-placed source said to me on Friday, his and Harry's meeting, however short, back in September set the precedent for that. But royal watchers should not mistake his willingness to see little Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet again or weakness, as I note some are saying. Both he and Queen Camilla have been deeply hurt by the repeated barbs thrown at them in recent years. Those are not easily forgotten. There are also some in the family that will never forgive the betrayal of intimacies by Harry, and understandably so. The king is very well aware of that. Additionally, many in royal circles have pointed out to me the way in which details of the Sussexes' travel plans were leaked by their team fits a wearisome and predictable pattern and only go to reinforce Buckingham Palace belief that they should continue to watch the monarch's back. But here's the key new line of briefing, Brittany, and I think this is very interesting. But the king, who let us not forget is still receiving cancer treatment, is also acutely aware that his two youngest grandchildren are not the instigators of the hostility and manipulation we have seen in recent years. They are innocents, caught up in a very sad and bitter family rift, even if it is one of their own parents' making. Afterwards, well, that's entirely down to the Sussexes, and courtiers will be watching closely. So, Brittany, trust me on this. This is information coming directly from King Charles's courtiers, Tobin Andre, who is the communications chief to Rebecca English. And this is a new line of sort of defense for King Charles. And it's one that I actually understand, Brittany. I'm not going to lie, this sort of resonated with me a little bit. At the very least, it's a clever PR strategy. It's like, we're not doing this for Harry and Meghan. Like, we know they're scumbags, but we're doing this for the two children. Because one day those two children are going to grow up and might want to have some type of connection to their royal life. And it would be unfair if we took away the opportunity for them to get to know their grandfather, who was also the king. So for me, I don't know how you feel about this, Brittany, but I feel like it's a more sensible briefing line from the palace, which up until now have really been allowing Harry and Meghan to drive quite an untrue narrative, which we're going to get to later in the show.
Yes, Dan, and I think it's smart, and of course we all understand, and I think the public, of course, would actually be quite cross with Charles if he was treating the children, let's say, harshly based on their parents. And so we understand, all do, that he has a desire to see his grandchildren, and his grandchildren might grow up to be perfectly normal and well-adjusted people. But the challenge also for Charles here is that I kind of disagree with Rebecca English reporting that, this is not weakness from Charles. I think in some ways it is, because they're still allowing Harry and Meghan to drive the narrative all the time. They're always reacting to them rather than...
It is weakness. I'm sorry, it is.
It is. There's no other way to put it. He's being weak here. He's allowing them to drive everything, and then he reacts. In this situation, smart PR people, you want to be the one driving the ship, and then they react to you. That's a smart way to do it. And Harry and Meghan, we have seen this endlessly for years now, are not going to follow the party line, are not going to get along well with people. And so you have to draw, in this case, Charles, the really hard lines here, and he just still can't seem to do it. He still can't do it. He's still hoping again for this relationship with his grandchildren, but unfortunately, his son and his wife are kind of scum, and I don't think he's going to get what he wants out of that relationship ever until maybe Harry divorces Meghan.
Yeah, and Brittany, what you're talking about in terms of setting the narrative is being done much better by William and Catherine and their friends and their team. And I'll give you an example of this. This is also new reporting from the Daily Mail, but it's Richard Eden, and it is very much reporting Catherine and William's response, and it is far, far tougher than the King's response. So Eden writes, while all these developments might suggest success for Project Thor, which in fairness to him, he has been across, this is this establishment plot to welcome Harry and Meghan back to the UK, there are two important ways in which it has failed to achieve its aims. Firstly, while the King will no doubt want to see his grandchildren, in Lily's case, for only the second time in her life, there is no change in the icy relations between Harry and his brother Prince William, I hear. It's a subject that's not even discussed anymore, a friend of William and Catherine told me. He made clear some time ago that he didn't want anything to do with his brother, and that hasn't changed as far as I know. The friend added, I doubt anyone knows what his views are on his father seeing Harry and Meghan because he doesn't talk about it. Just like the King's dealings with his disgraced brother Andrew Mountbatten, Windsor William is happy to leave the Harry problem to his father. The second way in which Project Thor has failed so far at least is in its aims of warming up the Sussexes' relationship with the British people. I detect no more enthusiasm for the couple than there was last October, and that's hardly a surprise when they have failed to apologise for their insults to the rest of the royal family. When I revealed the existence of Project Thor back in October, a friend of the Sussexes told me Meghan will return to Britain before the year is out. The friend added jokingly that she would be bearing humble pie. In the event, it has taken longer for the former actress to return, and if she does bear that humble pie and eat it, will her performance be enough to win her a second act with the British people? Personally, I don't doubt it. And so, Brittany, what we see is William and Catherine's friends making it very clear that they are strong. There's no weakness with them. They're not talking about it in a new way. They're not getting involved in every twist and turn of the Montecito soap opera. They're just saying, we don't talk about them. Nothing has changed.
It's very smart because what we've seen with Charles, Dan, is just Harry and Meghan driving chaos constantly. There's multiple reports. People are getting different things. It's just entirely chaotic and often very toxic. And that has been Harry and Meghan from the very beginning. And William is setting a very clear line here going, I am not being dragged into this. My wife has had cancer and treatments and she is still recovering. And we are not going to deal with this dog and pony show anymore. We're done. And what's interesting here for Harry is that he thinks somehow making inroads with his father will turn out well for him. And I think from, again, a personal perspective, making amends with his father is a smart thing to do. However, when it comes to the future of Harry and Meghan, the person they really need to work on is William and Catherine. Those are the two people they actually need to work with because William is the future. Charles's reign may be quite short. And so Harry and Meghan are kind of foolish here in a way to work so hard to kind of maybe try to soften up Charles, but not recognizing that when it comes to the true power in the monarchy in some ways, it probably really will rest with William, definitely in the future. And whether or not they have titles, their children have titles, I think a lot of that rests with William. And William has driven a hard line here, and he should. Until Harry and Meghan apologize for their behavior, there really should be no reconciliation because you can't trust somebody who can't acknowledge their failures. And Harry and Meghan, they just simply can't do that.
So, Brittany, let's come to this big financial release, which was embargoed for the UK newspaper front pages at 10 p.m. Now, often I know these PR tricks, what they did was give them this news line about not staying at Buckingham Palace to in some way overshadow some of the financial news, which wasn't necessarily as good as they would like you to believe, because obviously there has been a £369 million taxpayer-funded refit of the royal residence, first and foremost. So that could potentially anger people that they're not going to live there at all, because it was first reported that the reason for the big money refit was so that they could move back. At the time, of course, it was Queen Elizabeth II. And remember, it was used as royal residence for the first time by Queen Victoria in 1837. But royal aides yesterday insisted, this is according to the Mail, that the building would remain a buzzing hive of monarchy HQ with receptions, meetings, investitures, audiences, state visits and garden parties, all still held there. Then we come to the figures, Brittany, and this is interesting. So, King Charles personally paid £12.9 million in tax in the 24-25 tax year. He has voluntarily forked out more than $30 million since he came to the throne. This is the first time he's published his tax bill. For Prince William, who didn't want to publish the tax bill, but was sort of, I guess, forced into it because Charles had done so, he voluntarily paid £7.7 million in personal income tax. He also charged his father more than £500,000 in rent last year to continue to use Highgrove, which is his home in Gloucestershire, which William now owns through the Duchy of Cornwall. This is the more controversial figure, though, Brittany. The core funding of the monarchy is to jump to £100 million a year, almost doubling in the space of 3 years. But there is a reason for it, and I think we do have to be honest about that. It's not like they're just asking for more money for nothing. It is to fund a backlog in maintenance at occupied royal palaces, strengthen cybersecurity at royal residence, and install energy-efficient heating systems. So really that does have to be done, and palace upkeep is very, very expensive. Royal aides insisted they do not have a blank cheque from taxpayers, and the monarchy offers good value for money and public service, with funding remaining flat for the next 5 years. The change in royal living arrangements was revealed by the Keeper of the Privy Purse, James Chalmers, who said it had come after careful consideration by His Majesty and advisors. So this is what he said on the record, Brittany. This was the sort of palace official line. Following her death, that's referring to Queen Elizabeth II, we continued to make provision for these rooms to be potential residential accommodations for their majesties once they became available at the end of the resurfacing programme. However, I can update you that after careful consideration and to greatly increase opportunities for public access, the King and Queen have decided not to adopt Buckingham Palace as a personal residence and will instead continue to use Clarence House as their London home. Their Majesties will, however, have access to private rooms within the palace where they can retire during the course of a working day and which could be utilised as potential residential accommodation in times ahead. This is both a change from the past and a recognition of the future. Let me be clear, however, that in all other ways, Buckingham Palace will continue to be both the ceremonial and operational centre of royal life. It is and will remain Monarchy HQ, the crown jewel of our national buildings, with the sovereign standard flying proudly from the roof whenever His Majesty is in London, just as it has done since accession. The palace will also continue as the primary workplace of the royal household. It will provide a modern working environment fit for the world of today and for the future, and where we embed sustainability across all our operations in line with His Majesty's leadership. So, Brittany, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because on the one hand, I think, okay, how great if Buckingham Palace can be more of a centre hub as a tourist destination. But at the same time, it was so special, the fact that we had the Queen living there. What do you make of it? And also, I guess, the other financial implications too.
It's really quite interesting, Dan. And of course, when it comes to Buckingham Palace and like any older building in the UK, they need massive amounts of maintenance in order to just maintain functionality. These are not cheap buildings to maintain. So trying to get the palace upfitted for the 21st century would have cost a lot of money either way. That's no doubt, even if somebody was living there or not living there. You can't just let it fall into decay. You need to keep it up. Otherwise, you're going to have even bigger problems down the line. But when it comes to the British monarchy in some ways, which is really interesting, is that people forget that the monarchy used to be based out of the Tower of London, Windsor Castle, I think Greenwich Palace, then you also had Hampton Court. So the throne has always moved around depending on where the monarch at the time wants to actually live. And so we are in a time now where that is changing once again, which is historic in many ways. Of course, a disappointment in a lot of ways as well, because it is special to know that the monarch actually lives at Buckingham Palace. But I think we will see something different here. And when it comes to maintenance, of course, those costs I'm sure are going to rile up the Republic supporters, but they are things that the monarchy has to do. You have to be able to maintain these residences. And I think opening them up to more tourism, I hope that's along the lines as well, something we will get, especially with Buckingham Palace, I think will bring in more revenue and help support continuing the monarchy into the future as well.
Indeed, Brittany, indeed. Now, look, there is interesting new developments in terms of Harry and Meghan's plans to come back to the UK. This emerging from both their new propagandist in the media and Piers Morgan himself. So what we're going to do is get into all of that. Plus, by the way, reveal how the BBC lied about Prince Harry's